has landed.
The control room erupted in celebration on the other end of the feed. The hydraulic landing gear hissed and whined as the ship settled. Looking out the small porthole window, the red expanse of dust and craters, Gideon sighed. "Fuck me, we made it." It was the most excitement I'd ever seen out of the old man. I checked the stability meters and noted atmospheric composition. I scribbled some notes in the journal, and what emerged in ink was nothing legible. I decided to log the meters and come back to the documentation when I was not as emotionally flustered. "Lee, can you believe this? Mars, our sister planet. Oh, what sweet red adventures thou doth hold for us." Brady was awkward, but still the closest thing to a friend I've made since being selected for this program. "It's unreal," was all I could muster. "Command, this is Eagle. Contact has been made. Anchoring is initiated and the crew is ready. Standing by." Humboldt, the youngest of our quartet, shot mechanically into the satellite radio. "Now is the part where I'm supposed to say something inspiring for the history books, huh?" Command replied.
I think that'll do just fine, Humboldt. Stand by for further instruction."
Mission Crimson was underway. The first humans have landed on Mars, and I was part of it. Logistics Specialist was my official title, which sounded much fancier than the job felt. I was to document our daily activities, recording feeds from our life support and other vital systems, keep maintenance on track, and maintain any information critical to our mission. Which is why I'm writing this, I suppose. My background in journalism was finally paying off after dropping out of engineering school. Suck it, Mom and Dad. It was unreal, though. Dreamlike, almost. I'm not sure if it was the exhaustion or the gravity being so slightly off. But I felt like passing out when I unbuckled and joined Gideon to peer out the side of our ship. He rested his arm around me, eyes unmoving, and we both took in the beauty of the endless cratered scenery. That first day was spent erecting our annex pods. A barracks, greenhouse, recreation room, and laboratory flanked our four sides of the landing vessel as we installed the new structures. The original ship would house all of our life support, electrical, and other utilities. "The first Martian settlement!" Brady stood proudly with his hands on his hips as we finished work in the barracks. I paused to admire the final touch. "Think about that, Lee. We're Martians now. This is our home." I smiled. "All we're missing is the green body paint." Brady chortled and wiped his glasses off. Gideon stormed in, pausing at the door to inspect our handiwork. "Solid work, boys. Now let's get this briefing over so I can break in one of these beds. Sounds like we have our first trip. Don't know what for." We all met in the rec room and huddled around the small workstation. A live feed to command illuminated our faces blue as the Martian sunset tossed red rays and shadows across the room.
"First, congratulations, Eagle Crew. We cannot understate the pride this administration holds."
General Hess droned on, and Brady whispered under his breath. "PR bullshit. Jesus. Just get on with it."
So this brings us to the first order of business. Though we expect Mission Crimson to operate independently, we must assign a task to be completed immediately.
A strange look of unease drifted across the General's face. I wouldn't have caught it had he not turned to look at something, or someone, off screen, and shifted in his seat awkwardly.
Perseverance has identified tracks not far from your location. The rover will ping you the coordinates. I was able to follow them to a point, but there was a crater that prevents the poor bastard from going any further. Humboldt, Lee, I'll need you two to investigate. It's likely just meteor activity. But while you're out there, you may as well take the first round of samples too.
Simple enough. Humboldt and I packed a couple days worth of food and supplies, plenty of testing equipment, and hit the sack early. I woke up to a red glow spilling into my bedroom window. I wasn't sure I'd ever get used to that. Humboldt was already up and poured me a cup of coffee. We suited up, checked our gauges, and stepped into the pressure chamber, leaving the comfort of our new home behind. The coordinates weren't hard to read. Mars didn't have the same kind of global magnetic field, so navigation relied on a GPS and a rover network. Most of the natural landmarks were craterous rocky mounds, one after another. The quiet of thin atmosphere gave way to our hissing breathing apparatuses. A soft crunch met my boots with every step. Before long, our new home faded into the red behind us. We were alone. I broke the emptiness with a question.
How much further?
Humboldt lifted his tablet.
5 kilos. Hell, I used to run these in under 20 minutes. Not sure I can beat that with all this hunk of junk.
He hobbled around, testing equipment rattling in tow.
Probably why they picked us, you know? The 2 most athletic in the bunch. I bet Gideon was a real beast back in the day, though. You played basketball, right? You play in college? I did. Tar Heels. Ah, yeah. I knew it was D1. Cool, man. We'll have to set up a hoop when we get back.
My first impression of Ricky Humboldt was that he was a real jock. The kind that was undeniably better than you at everything, and knew it. He came out of the academy as a fighter pilot, trying his best to emulate Maverick from Top Gun. He even wore the aviators in The Martian Sun. It was annoying at first, but he was really truly good at his job. And that was why he was selected as the pilot and navigator of the mission. I'd grown to like him, though. We bonded strangely well, mostly over basketball. Soon enough, we spotted the silver periscope of a rover. As we approached, we noticed the tracks. I squinted my eyes together hard and tried to refocus, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Footprints.
What the?
Humboldt dropped his equipment and walked ahead. I followed and kneeled down beside him to get a closer look.
Not ours.
I noted the powder imprinted in the dust.
Where does this go? Just over that ridge, it looks like.
Humboldt stood and stretched.
Let's find out.
The footprints led us over a ridge and down a steep incline to a giant crater. As we descended, the distance between the steps became erratic. Some prints eroded over time, but this was no even pace and no regular hike. Around another bend, we were met with a surprise. The footsteps disappeared, and the rock and clay that followed smudged in messy long streaks. Humboldt looked back at me. The tracks faded away into the mouth of a small cave.
Do you think, we should go in?
My voice cracked. I would have laughed about it in different circumstances. I shone my floodlight into the cave, which reeled back in darkness. Humboldt said nothing, peering in, and activated his light as well. The sun was nearly gone now, our lamps the only combatants against the Martian night. He took a step, and hesitantly I followed. The cave was cramped, to say the least. I'm 6'5", so I'm used to hunching over in most places. Humboldt was a modest 5'8", and even he had to crane his neck as we pressed on. He led, with me right behind. The width of the cave couldn't afford us to walk side by side. That's why, when he jolted back, I tumbled backward right onto my ass.
Oh shit, oh fuck!
The unmistakable sound of panic came with his voice.
What the fuck? What is it?
I don't remember standing back up. I was just reacting from that point on, I think. My partner froze. I nudged him aside to get a better look for myself. I had trouble understanding what I was seeing in that moment. Like trying to search through moving water to see an object underneath. The first thing my brain allowed me to recognize was a hand. A bony skeletal hand clutched its opposite. The hollows of its skull looked through us to some unknown object. Above the body was the strangest part of it all. Symbols. I'd mistake them for hieroglyphics if I hadn't squinted to try and find similarities in these symbols. I couldn't. Some communication was trying to be made, but to whom? The rock walls of this cave were carved with such ancient precision that I had almost forgot about the body beneath the writings. I stood paralyzed, attempting desperately to understand just what the fuck I was looking at. Humboldt bolted out of the cave, and I heard retching sounds behind me. I felt something churn inside me as well. I stepped back, careful not to break my gaze with the skeleton. It sounds silly, but I felt something evil there. Horrible horror movie tropes about the living dead played through my mind. I shook my head and left the cave. Humboldt stood from his kneel, vomit in his helmet.
Humboldt, are you...
That's when the ground began to shake. I heard a low humming that sounded like a distant subwoofer. It sounded like it was coming from within my body. I looked back toward the cave and saw a purple light glow and pulse from within.
Wait, let's go!
I followed my friend back up the crater as it shook and moaned below us. As I stumbled up the steep incline, red sand and dust kicked up behind me, clouding my vision when I tried to look back. I hoped to be proved wrong, that I was seeing things, or that the darkness of the cave hadn't allowed my eyes to adjust. When I think about it, I can't quite remember what those symbols even looked like. Had there even been any symbols? The hovering particles of dust glowed purple from the light behind it when I looked back, though. It must have been real. Mission Crimson was underway, and we may not have been the first to have set foot on this strange red planet after all.